They cried about your age last night. Not because the number scares them, but because time exposes things people try hard not to see. Age doesn't just count years, it counts excuses that expired, chance that didn't wait, and potential that refused to disappear quietly. While you were living your days, growing without permission, becoming heavier with experience, someone else was lying awake realizing the clock doesn't negotiate. Age is a mirror people refuse to look into. They see numbers and immediately think of decline, of fragility, of things slipping away. They assume that each year should subtract, that time should weaken, that experience should soften edges until nothing sharp remains. But that's a story made for comfort, for people too afraid to confront what growing older really does. Age doesn't just measure years, it measures resistance. It measures the ability to endure when everything around you insists. You should have given up, given in, faded into the background. Every wrinkle, every gray hair, every scar is proof that time didn't claim you, that the world's pressure didn't flatten you, that the nights you survived alone built something inside you that can't be erased by anything external. People fear that reflection because it's a truth they haven't earned, a resilience they haven't built, a presence they can't replicate. When they cried about your age last night, it wasn't sorrow or envy in the innocent sense. It was panic. Panic that they'd been living under illusions about the passage of time. Panic that the years they thought would make everyone else lower, weaker, more predictable had only sharpened you. They realized in the quiet, in their own private moments, that the very thing they expected to diminish you had transformed you into someone inevitable. Age becomes terrifying when it's not a limitation but an amplifier. It doesn't subtract. It multiplies experience, insight, stamina, and the quiet ability to move in ways the unprepared can't understand. Every step you take is weighted by lessons survived, by moments endured without applause, by battle fought while no one watched. Most people misunderstand age because they confuse it with routine. They see repetition and predictability and assume that's all it can produce. They think the years are a countdown rather than a building process. But the chosen see differently. They recognize that every day lived fully, every challenge met instead of ignored, every discomfort faced without retreat, compounds. Age accumulates power. It accumulates wisdom. It accumulates a silent kind of influence that no one gives you credit for until it's too late to dismiss. That accumulation terrifies observers because it doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask for approval. It doesn't wait for validation. It just exists, quietly undeniable. They cried because your age tells a story they've refused to write. The story of endurance, of preparation, of refusing to let time dictate weakness. They see the contrast between their imagined limitations and your lived reality. They see that while they were calculating how old they would be before they could try, you were already moving, already building, already becoming something unstoppable. And that reflection is uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own failures to act, their own compromise with fear, their own surrender to the illusion that time is an enemy rather than an ally. If used wisely, age isn't passive. It's a canvas painted with choices. Every year adds strokes of action or inaction, courage or avoidance, honesty or self-deception. People cry because they see your canvas and realize theirs is incomplete, messy, uninspired. They see a version of possibility they cannot reach without confronting the years that wasted hiding from responsibility, ignoring pressure, or seeking comfort over growth. And that realization, quiet as it may be, is violent to someone who built their identity around being younger, faster, less accountable, more sheltered. What they call envy is really fear. Fear that time doesn't follow the script they wrote in their minds. Fear that the metrics they assumed would protect them, youth, chance, external validation, aren't real ones. The real metric is how you use each moment, each year, each trial. And you've used them in ways that make your age not a burden, but a weapon, a shield, a signal that you've survived and learned and adapted. That signal terrifies them because it reminds them that time is impartial, that opportunity doesn't wait for excuses, that life rewards those who endure instead of those who merely endure superficially. They cried because age exposes truth. It shows what is real, what is earned, what is inevitable. And your age carries authority because it's lived, tested, and refined. It doesn't ask for recognition. It doesn't require applause. It simply stands there, undeniable, marking every year survived not with weakness, but with evidence of persistence, clarity, and quiet dominance that the world cannot ignore, and those who feared your potential cannot. Contain time doesn't wait for anyone, but people act like it does. They plan, postpone, bargain, and distract themselves as though the hours and years will stretch endlessly, forgiving every delay, excusing every hesitation, allowing them to remain safe in the illusion of potential. But potential is meaningless without action. Age doesn't lie. It counts everything. Even the moments you think are invisible, the nights you hide behind excuses, the days you let pass pretending tomorrow will fix what today ignored. And that is why they cried last night, not because of the number, but because they realized your years aren't wasted, they are sharpened, accumulated, honed into something unavoidable. People fear your age because it's a reminder of inevitability. They see the weight of your experience and the quiet strength it carries. Age is a ledger, telling not just time but survival, choices made under pressure, lessons endured in solitude. Every year you've lived has layered understanding over instinct, patience over impulsiveness, insight over ignorance. And those who thought you would fade, who assumed your influence would weaken, wake up panicked when they realize that time has done the opposite. It has given you form, clarity, and power they cannot replicate, and they know it. They cried because age is impartial. It does not favor youth or circumstance. It does not reward excuses or charm. Time simply records every hesitation, every avoidance, every surrender. Every night spent hiding in comfort is noted, and every risk taken, every challenge met, every discomfort endured builds into an invisible arsenal that they cannot see until it manifests in your presence, in your confidence, in the undeniable reality that you are more than their assumptions allowed. Age exposes both weakness and strength, and they are afraid because they see which one you chose to cultivate. People try to rationalize your growth. They say luck, timing, connections, coincidences, anything to avoid confronting the truth, that discipline, endurance, and persistence matter more than circumstances, that the quiet work done when no one is watching compounds faster than the noise people create to look busy. They cry because your age proves this truth empirically, tangibly, in ways they cannot dispute, in ways that feel personal, because it exposes their own lack of preparation, their own refusal to face the relentless passage of time as a call to action rather than a threat. Time is relentless, and it demands accountability. Each year you age is another checkpoint, another marker that asks, what have you built? What have you learned? How have you responded to adversity? The world assumes you will forget the questions, but age remembers. Age doesn't forgive. And when they cried last night, it wasn't about sympathy or malice. It was the recognition that time sees all. And your record is inviolable because you chose to engage with it rather than run from it. They feared because your age speaks in ways words cannot. It speaks in posture, in calmness under pressure, in the quiet assurance that comes from experience lived fully rather than measured by others' expectations. It communicates lessons absorbed without boasting, strength accumulated without performance, wisdom distilled through trial, error, and persistence. And for those who resisted the discipline of time, seeing that manifestation of life they thought they could outrun is destabilizing, almost unbearable. Because it reflects everything they denied themselves. They cried. Because time can't be argued with. The years you carry cannot be stolen, diminished, or faked. They are tangible proof of endurance, proof that you survived when the world expected you to fold, proof that obstacles didn't break you, proof that preparation in silence counts more than noise in public. Age does not need explanation. It simply exists as a statement. And that statement is what unsettled them. They realized that no amount of complaint, doubt, or disbelief could erase what you had quietly built year after year. Time rewards action, consistency, and courage. Those who cry about your age see this, consciously or unconsciously. They feel the sting of comparison because their own timelines are littered with hesitation, compromise, and avoidance. Your age is a mirror, reflecting their unrealized potential, their wasted opportunities, their unclaimed victories. And mirrors are dangerous when someone else has learned to read them. Honestly, people cry not because they hate your age, not because they fear you personally, but because your years have become evidence that survival is deliberate, growth is intentional, and endurance is transformative. Every night of reflection, every moment of quiet struggle, every year of persistence becomes visible when someone refuses to hide from time. And that visibility is uncomfortable for those who prefer illusions over preparation, distractions over discipline, comfort over confrontation, because your age is now a measure of inevitability they cannot rewrite, and a silent challenge they cannot ignore. Endurance isn't a gift, it's a practice. Most people think survival is a matter of luck, circumstance, or chance, but the truth is far less flattering and far more precise. Every day you push through when others collapse. Every night you stare at your own doubts instead of hiding from them. Every challenge you face without applause builds a strength that is undeniable, inevitable, and quietly terrifying to those who thought time would weaken you. People cry not because they hate your age, not because it's unfair, but because it proves what they've avoided. Acknowledging that survival is intentional and you've mastered it. Endurance teaches lessons no one else can. It shapes character in ways that comfort cannot touch. While others chase fleeting approval, you've been refining patience, persistence, and resilience in silence. The people crying last night recognized that the years you carry aren't empty. They're full of battles fought alone, mistakes confronted without excuses, nights spent recalibrating instead of complaining. Every wrinkle, every scar, every line on your face whispers that you've endured what they cannot even imagine enduring. And that realization is painful to witness. The thing about endurance is that it accumulates power. People often underestimate it because it's subtle. It doesn't roar. It doesn't demand attention, but it builds quietly, invisibly, inexorably. The quiet moments, the ones spent when no one is watching, compound into something monumental. And when others see it, they panic, cry, or try to rationalize it, because it exposes their own neglect. They see that your time wasn't wasted, that your struggles weren't excuses, that your silence wasn't idleness. Endurance manifests, and suddenly, what they hoped would fade quietly has become unavoidable. Endurance also reveals truth. It exposes weaknesses, not to shame, but to challenge. It forces reflection on who you are when nobody is applauding, when nobody is judging, when nobody is keeping score. People cry because they see a life lived deliberately, and they cannot reconcile it with their own passivity. They fear that your years are proof that choice persistence, and self-discipline matter more than charm, luck, or convenience. Endurance becomes visible in posture, confidence, and the quiet control you maintain when chaos swirls around others. Most people fear endurance because it reflects their avoidance. It shouts, "You had time, you had opportunity, you had the ability to act, and yet you didn't." Seeing someone survive, thrive, and accumulate power over time forced them to confront their own failure to engage with life seriously. That confrontation triggers emotion. It triggers tears. It triggers panic. And it's not personal. It's accountability made physical. Age and endurance together do not lie. Endurance requires confrontation with fear. People spend their lives avoiding what scares them, convincing themselves that delay is safety. But delay is weakness. Real strength is moving forward in spite of doubt, in spite of uncertainty, in spite of every voice inside and outside that insists it's too late, too hard, too risky. Your age demonstrates that you didn't just survive time, you leveraged it, you endured it, you learned from it, and witnessing that, others feel the sting of missed opportunity, the hollowness of inaction, and the pressure of unclaimed potential. The people who cry about your age are not crying about you, they're crying about themselves. They see what's possible, what they've ignored, what they could have achieved if only they had chosen endurance over convenience, courage over comfort, persistence over procrastination. Your age becomes a mirror, reflecting every evasion they've made, every shortcut they've taken, every moment they've pretended that tomorrow would fix today. And mirrors are dangerous when someone else has learned to read them. Honestly, endurance shapes legacy before recognition. People misunderstand it because they seek immediate results, applause, or validation. Endurance doesn't offer that. It accumulates quietly, building a presence, a command, a weight that cannot be ignored when it finally appears. And your age demonstrates this weight. It shows that what's built over time cannot be stolen, denied, or dismissed. It becomes evidence of mastery over yourself, over circumstance, and over the very clock that others cry to when they realize it doesn't forgive. Survival and endurance also demand honesty. You cannot endure without facing yourself repeatedly. You cannot grow stronger without confronting your limitations, mistakes, fears, and stubbornness. And the people who cried last night see this reflected in you, the calm certainty, the quiet authority, the sense that you've been tested and passed while they've only watched or waited. That reflection terrifies them because it exposes their own avoidance and forces recognition of what real engagement with life produces. Endurance combined with age becomes unstoppable. It's proof that time doesn't diminish those who engage with it. It strengthens them. People cry not because they wish harm, not because they hate, but because they cannot reconcile your presence with. Their inaction cannot unsee the evidence of your growth and cannot escape the truth that living deliberately over years produces something undeniable, something unavoidable, something terrifying to those who assume time would diminish instead of refine. Experience isn't given, it's earned, and it doesn't ask permission. People look at age like it's a number, a measure of decay, a countdown, but they fail to see the accumulation beneath it. Every day lived fully, every risk taken when others hesitated, every failure confronted without excuses, stacks quietly into something enormous, something undeniable. Experience builds muscle in places people cannot see, muscles of patience, perception, endurance, and subtle dominance. That's what unsettled them last night when they cried. Not because they hate your age, but because it speaks of something they never earned and cannot replicate. Experience is relentless. It exposes who you are when no one is watching. People cry because your years have been filled with moments that demand more than comfort, more than convenience, more than excuses. Every choice you made, every hardship you endured, every decision you confronted directly added to the weight of presence you now carry. And that presence is heavy because it's real, it's tangible, and it moves through the world without begging for recognition. Those who underestimated you wake up panicked because they realize time did not diminish you, it refined you. Experience also rewires perception. Age becomes a lens through which the world is understood differently. You see patterns, intentions, consequences, and opportunities that the untested cannot recognize. While others cry, you operate with subtle authority because your years have shown you what matters and what doesn't. Experience teaches that noise is irrelevant, distractions are temporary, and people's doubts are a reflection of their limitations, not yours. That clarity makes them uncomfortable because it's an unspoken challenge. They realize they can't match the weight of knowledge you've quietly amassed. They cried because experience highlights endurance and consequence. Life tests everyone, but not everyone answers. Some retreat, some rationalize, some numb themselves to pain and responsibility. Experience accumulates from answers, from confrontation, from refusing to let circumstances dictate behavior. And when they look at you, they see someone who answered, someone who transformed adversity into understanding, someone whose age is not a burden, but a ledger of victories, lessons, and resilience that cannot be ignored. Experience is not flashy. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand applause. It moves quietly, invisibly, like a river carving canyons over centuries. People cry when they notice that river because they realize they've been standing on dry land, pretending the world shapes itself around them. Your age, your presence, your quiet authority reveals the effort they avoided, the lessons they skipped, the growth they postponed, and that revelation is painful because it is undeniable, exact, and impartial. Experience forces confrontation with reality. It shows what fear cannot erase, what hesitation cannot protect, and what denial cannot hide. People cry because your age proves that time is impartial and you chose to engage with it rather than evade it. Each year becomes evidence of mastery over circumstance, endurance of struggle, and accumulation of wisdom. And that evidence unsettles those who measured time by comfort instead of action, by avoidance instead of confrontation, by illusions instead of effort. Experience also communicates through presence. Your posture, your decisions, your calm in chaos, your refusal to be rattled by doubt, all of these speak louder than explanations or excuses. People who cry last night see not just your age, but the authority it carries. They see that you've been tested and survived repeatedly, that your judgment is informed by trials they refused, that your resilience is built on foundations they cannot touch. That realization triggers discomfort, envy, and fear because it reminds them of the life they did not build. Experience becomes unstoppable when paired with intention. Age without engagement is a number, but age with deliberate action becomes a weapon, a shield, a signal. Your years reflect deliberate choices, conscious effort, and repeated confrontation with difficulty. People cry because they see that combination in you and cannot reconcile it with their own inaction. They see that what they expected to diminish you has instead made you undeniable, inevitable, and unavoidable. Experience does not wait for validation. It accumulates quietly, shapes silently, teaches lessons relentlessly. Age becomes proof that growth is not optional, that engagement matters more than circumstance, that persistence outweighs convenience. And when others see it, it unsettles them. They cry not because of envy alone, but because they are confronted with the truth that time rewards those who endure, act, and learn, and punishes those who do not. And your age proves the principle in a way that cannot be ignored. Denied or undone presence is a weapon most people underestimate. They confuse being seen with being heard, being visible with being relevant, moving with achieving, but presence is quieter, heavier, more deliberate. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't beg attention. It sits in the room, layered with all the things time has taught you, all the endurance you've built, all the decisions you've survived, and suddenly it becomes undeniable. People cried last night because they recognized your presence as proof of something they cannot manufacture, a manifestation of years lived intentionally, a force they can only watch from the sidelines. Presence accumulates. It's not a single act, a moment, or a decision. It's every choice you've made that refused distraction, every night spent confronting discomfort, every challenge faced while others avoided confrontation. Each act, each decision, each moment of resilience adds to it. By the time you step into a room, your presence is more than posture or voice. It's a gravitational pull. People cry because they feel it. They feel the weight of preparation, endurance, and intentionality concentrate in someone who refuses to be ordinary. Presence also exposes truth. People cry because they see themselves reflected in it. The parts they ignored, the potential they wasted, the courage they lacked. Presence does not lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't accommodate delusion. When you walk into a space carrying years of intentional living, endurance, and hard-won wisdom, the mirror it holds up is unflinching. Those who preferred comfort over confrontation, delay over action, illusion over engagement, feel the sting immediately, and it manifests as tears, frustration, envy, panic, or all of the above. People confuse presence with confidence, but it's not about showing off or performing. Confidence can be faked. Presence cannot. Presence comes from internal alignment. It comes from the discipline of enduring challenges without recognition, from surviving when nobody noticed, from making decisions under pressure when every option felt like a risk. It is the culmination of time leveraged correctly, not charm, luck, or circumstance, and that reality terrifies those who assumed your age or appearance would be irrelevant, because presence cannot be ignored, misread, or diminished. Presence demands attention without asking for it. It forces recognition, not by shouting, but by being unavoidable. People cry because they cannot pretend it doesn't exist. It exists in the way you move, in the subtle authority in your eyes, in the calm precision of decision-making, in the quiet command that comes from having seen enough, survived enough, and endured enough to understand that the world bends subtly, inevitably, to those who refuse to be distracted by its trivialities. Presence also exposes lack of preparation in others. People cry because they realize that while you were cultivating endurance, insight, and discipline, they were counting days, avoiding risk, chasing comfort, or waiting for circumstances to shape them. The contrast between a life deliberately lived and a life carelessly endured is impossible to ignore. Presence makes that gap visible, palpable, undeniable, and when they see it, they cannot unsee it. Presence is cumulative, a silent proof of mastery over time and self. Each year, each struggle, each quiet night of preparation adds layers to it. It grows heavier as it becomes inseparable from who you are. People cry because they feel the density of it, the inevitability that comes from consistent action, and the reality that your authority isn't borrowed, it's earned. It unsettles because it reflects what they chose not to do, what they postponed, what they ignored. And they recognize the opportunity they abandoned. Presence isn't reactive, it's deliberate. It's shaped by choices, honed by endurance, tempered by adversity. People cry because they sense the difference between someone who exists by accident and someone who exists by design. Your presence, forged over years of deliberate engagement with life, confronts every shortcut they took, every hesitation, every moment they wasted pretending the world would wait for them to catch up. That confrontation manifests as disbelief, frustration, and tears. Presence carries inevitability. It's proof that when time is used intentionally, when endurance is cultivated privately, when lessons are absorbed fully, no external chaos can diminish it. People cry because they realize your presence is unstoppable, grounded, undeniable, and it is a living record of everything they avoided, everything they postponed, and everything they were too afraid to become. It's a force that waits for no one, bends for no one, and silently demands recognition from those who underestimate. The power of years lived deliberately. Presence is proof, evidence, and challenge all at once. People cry because it holds up the mirror they never wanted to see, exposes the work they refused to do, and demonstrates that the quiet accumulation of action, endurance, and intention over time creates something far heavier, sharp, and more consequential than luck, charm, or circumstance ever could. And that force is standing there, unmistakable, undeniable, waiting for them to accept that they can't erase it, ignore it, or diminish it.